Hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Cassie Villela and I'm a realtor, property manager, and investor here in San Antonio, Texas. On this channel, we talk about all things real estate, from market updates, investing tips, to home and garden, San Antonio living, that kind of thing. So if that's your cup of tea, then please like, subscribe, follow, you know the drill. Now on to the show. I am super duper excited because this is something I've been wanting to do for years now. So I have been wanting to do a start to finish, home buyer's guide since I started as a realtor. I just think that there's so many questions. It's such a difficult process. It's something most people don't do very often, and it's one of the biggest financial decisions you'll make in your whole lifetime. And so it's a lot of pressure. It's very confusing. So I've been wanting to make a video series that my clients and other people can watch just to kind of help them walk through the process, know what to expect, etc. And so I hope that that's useful. One side note is that this is going to be applicable to Texas because that's where I practice real estate. If you're in another state, some parts of this might be slightly different, so you're going to want to check with your local realtor and make sure that you understand how the game works in your state. But if you're in Texas or if you're curious about Texas, then this should help you. We're gonna start with step one. If you are just now kind of thinking about okay, I think it's time to buy a house, I'm tired of renting, my lease is up, let me think about what I could possibly buy. I'm gonna help you with where to get started. So step one's kind of confusing though, because it's actually two steps that kind of happen at the same time, or you could do them in either order. It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna suggest though that you start with finding a mortgage broker. So the two that you do at the same time are finding a mortgage broker and finding a real estate agent or realtor. In my opinion, it's more helpful to find the mortgage broker first. And here's why. Unless you're a cash buyer, most of us are going to be using a mortgage to buy our home, especially an owner-occupied home. What you're able to buy is going to depend on what this company will loan you. The amount this company will loan you. If you haven't ever done this process before, the process by which a mortgage company determines how much they're willing to loan you is super complicated. There are a lot of factors that go into it. So it's not just like, oh, you have the down payment, great, let's buy a home. It's what is your credit score like? What is your job history like? How long have you been at your job? What's your debt to income ratio? All kinds of factors go into this. And so you need somebody who knows what they're doing, who can look at your situation as a whole and say, yes, you will qualify for a loan, because there's nothing worse than falling in love with a home or getting really excited about the process and then being told, oh, actually, you're not going to be able to buy a home. That's the worst, so don't do that. And then second of all, how much home you can afford. Now, of course, I always recommend you determine how much home you can afford. Definitely do your own budget, determine how much of a payment you can tolerate, and then use that to decide how much home you're going to buy. But you also have to make sure that the mortgage company agrees and they know that you can afford that much home as well. The mortgage broker is going to be able to give you that number. Let's say they look at your whole situation and they say, okay, yeah, you're qualified for up to $250,000. Well, then you can go to your realtor and say, I'm qualified for up to this much. And nobody gets upset, nobody wastes their time looking at homes that you're not going to be able to buy. I think it's very important to do the mortgage broker step first. One thing we need to talk about is the difference between a mortgage broker and a bank loan officer. A lot of people who are first-time home buyers kind of assume, okay, I want to buy a home, so I bank at XYZ Bank. So what I need to do is walk into the bank, talk to their loan officer to get a mortgage. And that's perfectly fine. Most banks do write mortgages and credit unions as well. Most of them write mortgages, most of them offer mortgages. Downside of going through a bank, however, is that that loan officer has one set of rules. Like, this bank has these qualifications for a loan. And if you don't fit that set of rules exactly, you're not going to be able to get a loan, or your loan might fall through, etc. Or they may put you in a higher interest rate, something like that. And that's because that loan officer only has that bank's loan product to put you in. A mortgage broker, on the other hand, works with lots of different mortgage companies and finds the best product for your particular situation. Maybe they're working with company A, and that you're going through the process and company A says, oh wait, they've only been at their job 6 months and we have this rule that they have to be there a year, so we're not going to be able to write the loan. That's a silly example, but I'm just making it up. So then that mortgage broker can then go, oh, okay, well, but I know that company C doesn't have that rule, so I'm going to put you in that loan product. So they just have more flexibility overall. They know, they can look at and compare, okay, your interest rate with this company is going to be this versus this other company, it's going to be a bit higher, the whole thing. So I totally recommend going with a mortgage broker. There are some good, especially credit unions that have some good loan products, but overall, I prefer using a mortgage broker. So let's say, okay, you understand you need to use a mortgage broker. How do you pick one? There are thousands of mortgage brokers in Texas, right? They're all over the place. How in the world are you supposed to decide which one? Because this is a huge decision, right? The mortgage broker that you choose is going to essentially be the difference between getting your home and not getting your home, right? This is a big deal. So you really need to take it very seriously and interview at least 2, if not 3, mortgage brokers during this process. I know it sucks. I know that it's tempting to just say like, okay, I like the first one, so let's just go with that. I've done that before, to be honest, but I just think that this is a really important step. And so I would encourage you to do your due diligence, do the homework, pick somebody who's going to work best with your situation and your personality. So I have 3 of like what I would say are the top traits you need to look for in your mortgage broker. So number 1 is communication style. You are going to be talking with and communicating and getting paperwork to this person for the foreseeable future. Mortgages are awful, and mortgage companies require a ton of information. I mean, a lot of that is federally mandated by the Dodd-Frank Act, but we won't get into that. You're going to have to communicate with this person more than your realtor. Like you're going to be talking with them constantly, right? This is a really important thing. You want to make sure that the communication style that you prefer matches with the mortgage broker you are choosing. So, for example, if you're somebody who hates to talk on the phone, you would rather send a text or email, then you don't want a mortgage broker who doesn't know how to text, right? Or who doesn't like to text. You're going to want to pick somebody who communicates in the same style as you and who you feel like is good at explaining things in a way that makes sense to you. We all learn very differently and we all teach very differently. I may have a mortgage broker that I think does a fantastic job of describing things to my clients or to me, and I may gel with that person really well, but I may have a client who just, it doesn't work, right? They don't understand how that person is teaching, and they may jive better with a different mortgage broker. So that's why I say you gotta talk to at least 2 or 3 so you can compare their different styles and kind of see which one is gonna work best for you. Number 2, experience and knowledge. The whole process of obtaining a mortgage is so convoluted. A lot of things can go wrong. The underwriters can, flag certain things. All kinds of things can happen. So you want to make sure that the person you're dealing with has a lot of experience and they know what to do when things go wrong. That's the key. Everybody knows what to do when things go right. You know, if there's no problem, anybody can do it. It's when something goes wrong that you want that person who says, I've dealt with this 15 times before. This happens, and then all we have to do is this, and the underwriter's going to be fine. That's going to save the day in that situation. And so you want to make sure that the mortgage broker that you select has, a good amount of experience. I mean, years of experience is certainly an indicator, but you could have somebody who is super part-time for 15 years who's done fewer transactions than somebody who's been doing it for 4 years, but does a whole bunch. So you kind of want to look at how many transactions have you done. Maybe in the interviewing process, ask them, when is a time that something went wrong and how did you fix it? You want to just make sure they know what they're doing. Because the worst thing is when something goes wrong and the mortgage broker can't really fix it, doesn't know what to do, and then the whole transaction, it can really be a mess. So you want somebody who knows their stuff. You also want somebody who's going to be honest with you right at the beginning. And this is a huge problem, in my opinion, that happens way more than it should. But sometimes people will get pre-qualified from a mortgage broker. They'll talk to the mortgage broker, and usually it's like a newer, more inexperienced broker that will do this, but they want to make a sale. So they'll say, yeah, we can do this. I qualify you for this much, whatever. But actually that person is not going to be approved for that loan. But actually there's some kind of problem, and an experienced mortgage broker would have been able to spot that right at the beginning and would have said, like, hey, you need to go fix this and then come back to me because you're not going to qualify for a loan. And I think that's a huge advantage. When you have somebody who knows their stuff so well, they will say at the very beginning, like, no, I'm not going to work with you on this because at the end, it's not going to go through. That's hard to hear up front, but it's much easier to hear up front than when you're halfway into a transaction and you end up losing your earnest money because you couldn't close at the end. So you definitely want somebody who knows their stuff, is going to be honest and upfront with you. So communication, experience, and knowledge. And number 3 is you want somebody who will fight for you. And so, like I said, things can go wrong. And all of these companies have all of their stipulations. An underwriter combs through all of your documents, combs through all of the situation. And, a lot of the time, something's going to come up. Something's going to go wrong. They're going to want something, or they're going to say, no, we don't like this thing about you. We don't like this thing about your finances, whatever. And there's 2 kind of responses to that from a mortgage broker. You have the mortgage brokers who will just throw their hands up, like, oh, well, sorry, you're going to have to back out of the contract. It didn't work out. And then you have the mortgage brokers, like the ones I use, who are like, we are going to back out over my dead body. Like, we are going to get this done. I'm going to pull out all the stops. Like the mortgage broker that I use one time, like, called the vice president of the whole mortgage company to just argue with them. Like, you want somebody who's going to be like a bulldog for you, right? Like somebody who's going to fight to make sure that it closes. And not all mortgage brokers are going to do that, honestly. So you want to make sure you choose somebody who has skin in the game, who's going to want to make sure you close. And part of that, I would say, is looking for a mortgage broker who is either independent or with like a local company. A lot of times people will go online to get these like cheaper rates, and these companies don't have as much of a vested interest, and they're very difficult to work with, and they will just give up right away. So you don't want to do that. You want to find somebody who's in the same town, who you can talk to face, who will get the problem solved if things go sideways. So that's super important. I know a lot of people get caught up, and my husband and I went round and round on this for years, but he's an engineer, so he was just caught up on the numbers, like just the interest rates. And, I was saying, like, basically at the end of the day, the interest rate is going to depend on your situation, and it's gonna be pretty consistent across the board. You're not gonna get like a super good deal from one broker that the other one wouldn't have offered. So to me, the interest rate is really the least of my worries. I want somebody who's gonna make sure that the loan goes through. That's way more valuable to me than saving some pennies on, you know, a fee or an interest rate. So that's my advice. Other people may have their own opinions. Other people may put interest rate and fees up in your, you know, things to look for. But in my opinion, as long as you've got a good mortgage broker who knows what they're doing, you're already going to get the best rate that is possible for you. So just look for communication, experience and knowledge, and I guess just dogged determination to finish the sale. And then everything will be just fine. Well, even if it's not fine, they'll make sure it turns out fine. So that's my spiel about getting a mortgage broker. After you find one, go through a little bit of the process, give them some of your documentation, let them pull your credit, and find out what they're going to pre-qualify you for. Now, pre-qualify means basically them saying, you know, I've talked to this person, and based on their situation, I think that I can get them a loan for up to X amount. You know, I can get them a loan for up to $250,000, right? And so that's pre-qualified. Then you kind of have that range in your head, and you can go to your realtor and tell them this is my range, and they can confidently go out and fight for you. All right, so my camera super rudely died on me, so I had to charge it, and we're back at it now. So sorry for that. It's probably gonna be a really annoying interruption, but what are you gonna do? So we've talked about mortgage broker. Hopefully you have a general idea of how to choose the best one for you. Step 1B, I guess it would be, is to find your real estate agent. So there are 4 traits or characteristics that I would say are the most important when you're dealing with a real estate agent, traits to look for. Just like with a mortgage broker, you wanna interview 2 or 3, see which one jives the best with you. We all have different learning styles. You need to see which realtor really connects with you where you are at, if that makes sense. The number 1 trait, I think, is honesty and integrity. So you are going to be counting on your agent to represent you to all of the other parties in the transaction. So your agent is your mouthpiece to the seller, to the seller's agent, to the title company, to the loan officer. You want to make sure that whoever is talking on your behalf acts always out of integrity. I think that that's really important. There are a lot of parts of the real estate transaction where you as a buyer, or even as a seller on the other side, but you as a buyer are fully dependent on your agent to give you the right information. And I think that that is probably the most important thing, is to make sure you have an agent who's giving you the right information. Honesty and integrity are a huge piece of that, because I'll just give you one example. Let's say you found a home that you love and you want to make sure that the price, the sales price, is correct. And so what most agents would do is send you some comps. So comps are comparable sales. That's basically the agent looking at all the other homes in that area that have sold in the past year, maybe 6 months if it's a hot market, and sending you those sales so that you can know, okay, yeah, this house is definitely worth $250 because the house just like it 2 streets over sold for $251, and the house 2 streets over, you know, you can kind of calibrate, make sure, okay, yeah, I feel comfortable paying this much for this home. So you're gonna base that decision based on the comps that your agent sends you. Now, if I am desperate for a sale or wanting to rush you, I can pick those comps to show a certain value, can't I? I can conveniently leave off maybe some lower comps that might suggest you might need to negotiate a little bit. Things like that. Really subtle kind of things that, you know, I would say are not honest, are not acting out of integrity. So you want somebody who's giving you the full picture, who is not, you know, who's not going to mislead you, especially on purpose. So honesty, integrity are, for me, like the very, very top of the list. That's what you absolutely, like that's a non-negotiable. Trait number 2 is, just like the mortgage broker, the communication style. We already talked about that. Just you have a way that you need information brought to you. You need to pick a realtor who gives information that way, okay? Whether it's text, email, phone calls, meeting in person, and then whether it's, you know, explaining more like a teacher or giving you resources, whatever it is, you want that agent to communicate in a way that works best for you. You also want an agent that communicates with you quickly. So I know like probably the biggest frustration that people report with real estate agents is if they text or call and they don't get a response for a really long time. And I see how that happens from the agent side, because sometimes we're bombarded and there's a lot going on, but you want somebody who's going to reply to you within a reasonable amount of time. One caveat to that is sometimes people will text an agent, like I've gotten a text before, I'm standing outside of this house, I want to see it right now. And then when I say like, okay, I'm with another client, like that's not, I need notice before, you know, and they'll say, okay, I'll find another realtor. Well, if you're looking for a realtor and you can just out of the blue call somebody and they're immediately available, it's probably because they don't have any other clients. And there's probably a reason they don't have any other clients. So, you know, don't use that as your, like, oh, I call them and if they don't call me back within 2 seconds, I'm moving on. Like, if you have an experienced realtor, you may have to make an appointment with them, right? So I would say somebody who communicates with you effectively and reasonably quickly. So that was honesty, number 1, communication style, number 2. Number 3, again, like the mortgage broker, experience and knowledge. Again, that doesn't mean years of how long they've had their license, because there are people who maybe get their license and it's super part-time, it's kind of a side gig, or they just kind of help friends and family every once in a while, and they may have fewer sales over their 15-year period than somebody who does this full-time has in their 2-year period, you know? So you want to make sure it's kind of the number of transactions. You want somebody who is constantly working on, you know, continuing education, somebody who's constantly looking at data, trying to perfect their craft. You know, somebody who is obsessed with real estate data and who is wanting to learn more and give the best information to their clients, who's constantly trying to improve. I think that that's really important. And I think that's where the knowledge side comes in. And then experience is just, you know, again, things go wrong in real estate transactions. So you want somebody who has experienced that before and knows how to respond when things go wrong. So just like the mortgage broker, experience and knowledge. Okay, so number 4, and this is probably the easiest one, is just you want to pick somebody who's likable. You're going to spend a ton of time with this person. You're going to be doing showings. Once you get something under contract, you're going to be talking about the transaction for the next month. You know, you're going to be around them a lot for the next few months. So you want somebody who you like basically at the end of the day. All right, so you know the 4: honesty, communication, experience and knowledge, and likable. Look for a realtor that checks all of those boxes and any other boxes that you might have, and then we will move on to step 2 in the next video. If you have any other traits that you look for or any tips, if you are a mortgage broker and I left something out, because I am not, definitely comment below and let me know what I missed, or let me know what's most important to you as the home buyer, and let's have a conversation down in the comments. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Again, if you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe, like, follow me. I'm on pretty much all social media just as my name, so follow me and let's have a conversation, and I'll see you next time.